Ciao, sono Sara Z da La La Land. Incontrerò grandi ospiti provenienti da ogni parte del mondo. Vi sorprenderanno condividendo la loro storia, ma tratteremo anche svariati argomenti. Le storie raccontate spezzano le barriere. Enjoy!
Kayse Gehret, welcome to LA, Los Angeles, Florida, healing arts practitioner with over 30 years of experience specializing in microdosing, specifically mushrooms, microdosing. You have a great podcast by the name Microdosing for Healing. You also have a global platform that was established in November 2020. You also offer professional mentorship. There's a community support. So if people want to know more about it, you are open to explain everything, and you can follow Kayse on our Instagram account. So I want to say two things. One, I don't like mushrooms. I don't eat mushrooms in the salad. I don't eat them. I mean, sometimes I do, but I'm always afraid they are poison. There's something weird about it. And the second thing, a couple of months ago, I was driving here in Los Angeles. I don't remember which area. Red light. I turn my head, and I see the sign, a huge sign, psychedelic therapy. And the association of psychedelic with therapy really mesmerized me. Like I stopped for a second. I said, wait, what's going on? Because usually psychedelic, it's like a recreational drug, and a drug that can heal really made me think a lot. And I did a lot of research. I talked to some people who went through this. They used MDMA, which is the ecstasy, like the microdosing MDMA. But I really want to know more about it. I don't know if I'm going to try it. I don't know. But how did you get into psychedelic therapy, mushrooms?
I was like one of the world's least likeliest people to become a psychedelic facilitator in the world. So a couple things. I had a grand mal seizure disorder that started when I was a teenager. So I was always really careful and wary about my system, and never did drugs, let alone a psychedelic drug that would really impact my mind. So I did go into the healing arts, though. I studied many, many different modalities. And at some point, I met someone who specialized in microdosing psychedelics, which was, instead of a trip, it was subperceptual. I wouldn't trip. I wouldn't go anywhere. I could stay under control on Earth. And I thought that I was curious, and I didn't know really what to expect. It definitely wasn't a field yet. And as soon as I started, my seizures stopped. I had no more seizures, and I also had a whole lot of other benefits come in.
How, after many sessions of this, your seizures stopped?
Immediately. Yeah, I've not had one since.
And you said you haven't tripped, so you didn't have hallucinations?
At the time, yeah. So I microdosed for a while, which is 1/10 the amount of a psychedelic trip. So it's very tiny. I almost tell people to call it like a it's more of a spiritual supplement than anything else. You'll feel benefits, but you're not tripping at all. You don't feel altered. You actually feel more clear than not. But it's very, very different than a trip. So the idea is you accrue the benefits that you might get from a high dose session, but more incrementally, more gently, and you're not going elsewhere. However, a lot of people who are nervous about doing a high dose psychedelic trip, like me, like you, like a lot
even
of people
microdosing, I'd be nervous to be honest, but that's why I want to find out more.
As soon as you start, you realize it's very different than the perception that we have. A lot of people think it's going to be like cannabis, pot, alcohol, where we're going to be altered in some way, and we're going to be off of our game a little bit, more as an escape or different, and not necessarily positively. Mushrooms, however, bring you in the opposite direction. You're more clear, you're more focused, you're more present, and you're better in so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so as soon as people start microdosing, they have their own perception created. And a lot of people who think they never ever would work with psychedelics at a high dose develop a comfort with the medicine and they want to go deeper. So I'm a very cautious, slow person in all things. So I microdosed for probably about a year and a half on and off before I started going to higher doses.
Oh, so
And
now you're doing higher doses right now,
I do
which is,
personally. Yes, which is higher doses. It's in the mushroom world. It is usually between 3 grams and higher, although many people in my community and myself can journey at much lower doses than that. But basically there's a threshold that we call it that you work up to and where you start to feel altered, that you feel effects, and then at much higher dose you dissolve from this earthly realm and go into a different state.
with the microdose. So why did you have to jump to that level? Like, wasn't it enough, the microdosing? Just the
Yes.
microdose? At
If
one
I
point,
had,
it's like
yes, some
a
people,
medicine, right? Like sometimes they say start like antidepressant. You start with the lower dosage and then you might increase, but you might not increase. Maybe there isn't any need to increase. So, but with mushrooms, yes,
yeah,
it's
it's very different than the pharmaceutical route of things. And so a lot of people, because we're so conditioned to understand how antidepressants, for instance, work, like antidepressants, there's usually like a long ramp up period where you start and you figure it out and you might have side effects and then it lasts a few weeks. Then once you find a consistent dose, people tend to stay on that for months and years at a time and don't alter their dose to stay in a kind of holding pattern, and it controls your symptoms. It's not really ever getting underneath what's causing the symptoms. It's just maintaining maintaining control over the symptoms, managing the symptoms, if you will. Mushrooms and other psychedelics tend to get underneath the symptoms as to what's actually going on. So to use my seizures as an example, once I worked with mushrooms, they reset my nervous system fundamentally at such a different state. I no longer had the symptoms of a seizure. And once the great difference between microdosing and say a pharmaceutical medication, once you stop microdosing, it's not like your symptoms come back. It's you that is healed. It's not the mushrooms doing something to you.
so your mind is already like in line and works as if you keep going doing the microdosing, but it's like it's used to that feeling of
it gives you a new baseline, basically.
how's very interesting. But how's the process? So I saw a beautiful documentary on Netflix that was how to change your mind. And then there was a TV series with Nicole Kidman, Nine Perfect Strangers. I was like, oh, this is about like which I always mess up the pronunciation. Psilocybin, is that correct?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I wasn't correct. Psilocybin. Psilocybin.
It sounds
Is
better
that
with your Italian accent.
no? No. It has to be correct. Psilocybin. And but beside the TV series, like they didn't really show. Well, they showed in the TV series they just showed that people were starting hallucinating, but in the documentary, it was more like the reality of what happens when you trip. So you're in your bed, headset, music. Is that how the process is with you? How?
Yeah, so I myself specialize in microdosing. I work with a lot of beginners. I work with people who don't necessarily want to do a high dose journey, or I work with a lot of people who eventually might want to do a journey, but they want to start with something more subtle first and prepare themselves for the journey. Then I work with a lot of guides all over the world who specializes in high dose journeys and ceremonies, depending on the setting. They might be in a clinical setting, like on the documentary where they're in more of a medical type setting. Other people prefer to do their journey in a more naturalistic setting, out in nature. They might do it at a retreat. It might be a one-on-one experience. It might be a group experience. That's one of the nice parts about microdosing first is you really get to connect with the medicine. You see how it speaks to you, how you work with it physically and mentally, emotionally. And that often gives you clues how you would like to hold a journey when you get to that point. So some people really prefer to have a guided experience with a clinician, like they showed in the documentary, where it's almost like a therapist's office.
Right, like there are, like what I saw, two people like taking notes and guarding the person, tripping, like they might get up or they might talk or they might have some sensation. But what, regardless this, like what kind of sensation can you experience? What do you feel?
It's so unique to each person. That's the beauty, is sometimes even with microdosing, sometimes the mushrooms, people feel them physically, big shifts physically. Other people have a lot of mystical, spiritual experiences happen. Some people have beautiful connection with nature. Like they'll have really remarkable connection with their pets out in nature. A lot of people come first for the mental benefits, and they'll feel uplift, cognitive, their memory improves, they're more focused, they're less distracted. So there's lots of different ways the medicine will work with you and for you. And one of the things I love about microdosing, first, it helps people give clues in a high dose journey once they do a high dose ceremony. Like if you feel a lot microdosing with your physical body, it's highly likely in a high dose ceremony, you're going to feel a lot physically in that experience too.
What do you mean by that? Like,
so for instance, one common thing is we hold a lot of trauma in our physical bodies. Sometimes it's our trauma, sometimes it's ancestral in our lineage, sometimes it's just the trauma from overstimulus in this culture. If you live in LA, you're surrounded by a lot of inputs into your nervous system, right? And so in a high dose ceremony, if you're a very physical person, sometimes as you move through deeper layers, you'll shake, you'll dance, you'll have the impulse to move. You'll want to move your body and release a lot of that energy from your physical body. And so a lot of times people come out of the experience in the next few days, you feel, I mean, you're an athlete and a performer and a dancer, right?
I was thinking, oh my God, I move a lot. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna jump on buildings. I'm gonna jump on trees. Like, and I that's what scares me a little bit, like not being in control.
Yes.
And what if you feel those sensations in the following days and you cannot control and they come back to you? That's a little bit I'm afraid of being out of control with substances.
A lot of people are, yes. And I think that's why when you start with microdosing, you develop this relationship with trust with the medicine. You know how it starts to feel and work with you. And so and it's not like you're out of control in the journey itself. It's hard. It's such a hard experience to articulate, but some people have a very physical experience. Some people have a very spiritual, mystical experience. Like my experience is, I barely move. Mine are very spiritual.
But maybe you move here. You move in your mind. Maybe your mind moves, but your body is still.
Yes. And each journey is different. Every experience is different. There's always different teaching and lessons. And so one of the things we work with as facilitators, coaches, guides, we call ourselves lots of different things, is we work with people to develop their intentions. What are they working with? What are they hoping to receive and learn? But also leaving space for what are the lessons that the spirit of the mushroom or the medicine that I'm working with is here to teach me. A lot of times people have psychic breakthroughs. They see things before they happen. They're able to communicate with lost loved ones and cross time, go back in time, go back to childhood. It's really remarkable. The wisdom of nature in particular, when you're working with plant medicines and earth medicines, they have such a wisdom and intelligence that the human mind is only beginning to comprehend.
Excuse me, Kayse, what did you say? They have
an intelligence, a native intelligence.
Oh, native intelligence. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you think the experience is based on what kind of thoughts you had prior to the experience? Like if I'm focusing, let's say, more on my health and want it to be a healthier person, is the trip going in line with what my thought is of being healthy? Kind of like if I'm focusing more on my career, I might experience thoughts about my career and visualize,
Yeah.
like,
Yes. Yes.
kind of.
Yes. hmm I think that's one of the stigmas. You just lose control. And yes, the idea, the healing is the losing control somewhat, but we also have a lot of control in that we can set intentions and say, I would like to be shown things about my career. I would like to be shown why I'm having this physical discomfort that I'm having, what is actually going on with me spiritually, energetically, that's underlying these things. So yes, we set intentions. That's a big part of the process, in therapeutic use or healing use versus just say recreational use. And that's also perfectly fine too for people.
Mm-hmm.
But I hold this work typically from a healing lens and a spiritual development
But for
lens.
sure, I think people who take those type of drugs recreationally, they can do it on their own or with a friend who did it many times, but probably it might be better to do with a physician or with a person, a practitioner, a person who can guide you. I mean, this is what I would do if I'd like to try. Not sure, because I need to eat first mushroom in a salad, then I can do then I can do that. Then I can take a 4 week trip. But I here, especially in LA, and I met a person who tried the MDMA,
Mm-hmm.
and also it was very expensive, and he had two people going to his house
Mm-hmm.
because he can help like PTSD, post-traumatic symptom
Yes.
disorders. He can help anxiety, but people who have mental illness might not be suitable for this type of
Yeah. It's so
drug. Like,
individual.
I
Mm-hmm.
think this is what like doing my research, that it might affect the mind in a negative way more than positive. They have other disease or illness.
Mm-hmm. It depends. It's so case by case. So there are many, many mental health conditions that are greatly benefited by psilocybin therapy, depression, amazing
Mm-hmm.
results in clinical research, and also from what I have witnessed in real time use, like depression. Mushrooms are almost always, from what I have witnessed, supportive of depression. Other mental illnesses where people have a lot of instability, say schizophrenia, for example,
So they shouldn't. They
it's a
shouldn't.
case by case, but I think
Okay.
a high dose practitioner would go through a really, really thorough intake form with any client. And I think it's more important to work with someone professionally who has a background in mental health training when that's one of the things you're working with. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And how did you I mean, not you specifically, but what do you think, how did they find out that mushrooms or MDMA, those recreational drugs, are good to cure or heal certain
I love this
the
question.
did they already ask you that? Did they ask you that question?
I love this question because the fact that we have been using these medicines for.
Because it from the heat, right? Like time when people were using like just to or for example, even writers or philosophers like Bohemian, they were using LSD to be more creative because it helps artists to write better or to create or better paintings, drawings, and like it frees your creative process. And but why just now they
I love this
realize?
question. I love this question. It's more of a remembering than it is a discovering. I think each generation think we like to think that we were the first people to figure this out. Humans have been using earth medicines and plant medicines for tens of thousands of years. So there's a lot of research and books coming out now that are showing people it's tens of thousands of years that people have been using mushrooms in sacred ceremony across different cultures for religious ceremony, sacraments, personal growth, for healing, for dream studies. You know, people using psychedelics to enhance and promote dreams and healing through dreams. So we know this, like we have this in our bones and this remembering. So a lot of people, when they start microdosing, even people who are very, very cautious, as soon as they start, they say something like, this is strangely familiar. Like it feels new to me, but it also feels like I'm remembering something that's very, very old that I have done before. And that's exactly it. In terms of like the LSD and MDMA, that I feel is newer. Those substances are man-made and chemical-based, and so we don't have the history with them. But a lot of them work on the brain and with the body in very similar ways that plants and earth do.
If it's controlled, like the dosage has to be like controlled, and but isn't it the same dosage that someone can take when they go to a rave party? Isn't it the same? Like if I say, okay, today I'm going to take like a micro dosage of ecstasy, for example, and I'm going to a rave party. What's the
difference?
Hey, what's the difference?
Context.
Like that you are going to be with me and say, Sarah, go here, go there, like now, don't fly. No, I don't know. But
I mean, I've worked with so many people who they're adults, and when I ask them about their experience with psychedelics, they kind of laugh and giggle, and they're like, well, I've done a lot of mushrooms, but I never took it seriously. They'll say, I did mushroom trips as a kid, and I had this experience. I danced a lot, and it was funny and zany, and we had a blast, but I didn't really feel it was a healing experience. Now I want to hold it with a different intention and approach it differently. And so that's why the context and the way we approach it has a lot to do with the experience that we have. Absolutely.
I don't know if you convinced me, but I'm very fascinated, but at the same time, like I'm an anxious person, so probably would say, oh, if you're an anxious person, it might be good for you. By the other side of the coin, like, what if instead, like, you can become addicted, probably, or no? You don't become addicted. You don't need no addiction.
They're not addictive. And so just to use you as a guinea pig, since you're here, so you're perfect. So I love working with people when they're like, I'm a little bit nervous, like I'm intrigued, and I keep having these little serendipities happen, and they keep calling me. A lot of people are like, I just keep seeing mushrooms everywhere. It's like they're here, they're calling me, but I'm nervous. I don't like them. They're kind of weird. Like, what's going on? And so a beautiful way to start, like if the psychedelic aspect makes you a little nervous and tripping makes you nervous, it's totally fine to start with functional mushrooms, in that they're not psychoactive. So there's lots of mushrooms out there that you can get at the farmer's market: lion's mane, chaga, reishi, cordyceps. There's so many different mushrooms that are so healing, but they're not psychoactive. So when people are very, very nervous, it's a great place to start, to connect with nature, connect with mushrooms. They all have amazing healing benefits across the spectrum. And so that's a nice, gentle way for your body to get used to. You're not going to trip. You're not going to go anywhere.
And so how would you react instead with those that don't contain the substance, like the hallucinated substance, right? Like what's the difference with, are called functional mushrooms?
Yeah, so there's thousands and thousands of other species of mushroom that have medicinal and healing benefits. They just aren't psychedelic mushrooms. So people who are nervous about the psychedelic aspect, they can start with regular mushrooms and then work with those. The other thing I invite people, like we have a community of people all over the world microdosing together. Sometimes people, when they're curious, but they're not ready to start yet, they'll just come and listen to other people's experience. And that is a great way to come and ask questions and just listen. And people, it's remarkable how quickly your confidence gains when you can kind of see real people, real time. and the kind of describing the kind of experiences they're having. There's also so many different medicines you can work with. So I work with psilocybin mushrooms, but a lot of the guides and my colleagues work with different medicines too. You can microdose LSD, you can microdose Amanita muscaria. We're doing a special session this week, actually on Wednesday, on Amanita.
And what's this one specifically?
Amanita is the beautiful red mushroom, the little red mushroom with the white dots. It's the Christmas mushroom.
Oh, Dio!
Yes.
That
it's
one.
the Christmas mushroom. Yeah, so that too you can microdose. That one does have a different toxicity profile than psilocybin. So that one, it's much more important. The way it's prepared is very, very important. But a lot of different mushrooms have a lot of different benefits. So we work with each person to find out your level of comfort and ease, but you can totally start baby steps if you need to.
Of course. I would, if I ever start. And this is a question. It's nothing. The last question has nothing to do probably specifically with the benefits, but how do you get those type of mushrooms? Like, is there a company they send it to you, and you exactly know what they're sending?
Great question. I want to address your other question that I missed, which was, are they addictive? So no. So mushrooms are not addictive. And what's interesting is, as you use mushrooms, like, the goal of microdosing is not to need to microdose. So what I find is a lot of people, when they microdose, they might have an intention to start with, then you'll take a break, then they'll come back and do another series of microdosing, working with a different intention. Oftentimes people need a much lower dose instead of a higher dose, which is the opposite of what you would think. But because you're in a different place, you're more healed, your nervous system is different, you actually don't need as much of a dose to get the same effect. So they're actually quite non-addictive. And if people develop a dependency, it's more to do with the human. You know, humans aren't good at eating one cookie, right? Like,
right, and you can apply it with everything, right? Life can be sweet and
so it's not like sugar is very addictive.
I am addicted.
Tobacco is very addictive, nicotine, right? And so those things are truly addictive. Mushrooms and psilocybin are not addictive. It's more of the human not being able to to use them reverently. That's more of the issue. In terms of getting them, so that's such an important question. So just know your sourcing and how the mushrooms are grown and held is such a big part of the experience itself. You really want to take your time. You really want to work with people. If you don't know them firsthand personally, you want to work with people who you really trust.
Yeah, you want to feel safe when you do something like this, for sure.
So depending on your level of comfort, because psilocybin mushrooms are still illegal in most of the United States. There's pockets that are decriminalized, but they're illegal still.
They are illegal, right? You said?
Yes.
Oh, legal.
Or illegal.
Illegal. Oh, legal. No, I understood well. Yeah,
so
illegal.
Everybody who's working with mushrooms has to assess their own level of comfort and level of risk, depending on where they live. A really cost-effective and safe way, if you are willing to take on the risk, again, depending on where you live, is to grow your own mushrooms. It's really fun. It's really cost-effective to grow your own. And right now, in most of the United States, you can order spores. It's interesting. The spores are legal, but psilocybin mushrooms aren't. So we can cultivate our own. They're quite easy to grow on your own. And then outside of that, if people want it done for them, there are some public-facing websites that I know them and collaborate with them and send people to them who provide the source.
Okay. So you would have, of course, someone who can guide you through like how to grow your own mushroom. Now it popped onto my mind. Like, a friend of mine gave me a cactus, but it was psychedelic. No, I never touched it. I was just put a little bit of water. It was near my other plant, not psychedelic plant, but then I just, yeah, I don't know what I put it.
So it was probably San
I
Pedro.
think, excuse
It
me,
was probably
say
a
again?
San Pedro cactus.
And he had many, because I went to his place. Yeah, I teach Italian. It was one of my students, actually.
Oh, good.
And I saw he had different cactus
Uh-huh.
that were psychedelic, though. And he gave me one as a gift, but I was like, what kind of gift? Because I'm not going to do anything with this. Like, so you said it's San Pedro? Is San Pedro the name of,
Probably.
what kind of, what kind of
The San Pedro also is a
it was
psychedelic.
a psychedelic.
It's also called Wachuma, and it's
Forgot the
yeah,
name, but
it's a beautiful. It's a beautiful medicine, and it's called grandfather medicine in the
why?
field. It's grandfather medicine. It tends to be a very soft medicine and very, very nature connecting medicine. So a lot of the people that I work with who really are strongly connected to the earth really love working with that cactus medicine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it was a real thing. It was the real deal then, because I thought at the beginning I thought it was joking, but then instead I realized it wasn't, because I saw many other cactus and it was explaining they were psychedelic. But however, you need to know like the percentage or how much you can take, because I think if you maybe you can go in overdose if you take more, or I mean something can happen physically to your
Mhm.
body probably.
Similar,
Yeah.
similar to mushrooms in that a little bit, you know, we'll be microdosing. Then if you take too much, you would be in a journey. Yeah.
I have another story, but no, this was another friend of mine who was working with someone,
Uh,
and he this guy is a sound engineer, and those people were on in a different city, and he was in their place in LA working on the sound of their music. And then he opened the drawer. He was hungry, and there was some chocolate. Well, that chocolate was psychedelic, and he got sick because he started eating it. Sorry, and then he ate quite a bit, and then he realized later that was a psychedelic, and they were keeping it in the drawer like that, and they didn't tell him, and he tripped, and that was bad. It was like everything was moving and he had to lay down. That was bad. So that was chocolate, for example, but I know
mhm.
it's not mushroom. Ecco, probably I would do that with chocolate. No, no, with chocolate, mushroom, non lo so. I don't know. Uh, but thank you, Kayse Gehret. Thank you so much. It was
Yeah.
very informative, and I'm gonna searching more and find out more about it. And the live is gonna be on my feed, so you can follow Kayse Gehret. Don't be afraid to ask her questions. You have a website as
I
well,
do,
right? You also have
yeah.
your website. They
I
can.
love working with beginners. So yeah, people are more than welcome. I have a free 80-minute workshop where I answer like all the beginner questions that people can download for free online. And then as you said, we have 49 podcast episodes from all different guides from all over the world. Some are microdosing guides, some are journey guides. So if you're interested or one or the other or both, yeah, if you're nervous about this work, but you kind of feel drawn to it, empowering yourself with education is the number
Exactly.
one.
There's a lot of right misconception about it, because that's what I said at the beginning. We associate psychedelic with like a drug, and that's why it is a new, but it is new in terms of a healing drug.
Yes,
But the benefits of it are very, very um, powerful. So
it is.
thank you. Thank you so much, Kayse Gehret.
Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot for all of your information. This is from Hollywood, LA, tripping city. A lot of people do it here, a lot. When I talk to someone, oh yeah, I do mushroom, but recreational. The recreational part, not the healing, not yet, except one person I talked to. So it might start probably more might become the thing. Maybe in Italy. In Italy, I think they do it in Italy too. They're starting in Italy, but not yet. Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Va
Beautiful.
bene. Grazie mille. Grazie, Kayse.
Thanks, Faith.
Ciao. Thank you, everyone who was live with us. Bye.